I've got some troubling news about England's royal family.
Prince George gets the title Camilla wanted for her grandson, and her reaction was heartbreaking. For years, Queen Camilla had reportedly hoped that her grandchildren might one day receive a small place within the royal world. Not the throne, not a major royal role, just one symbolic sign that her family belonged to. But then Prince George received a prestigious ceremonial distinction. And suddenly, everything became clear. According to the story surrounding the announcement, Camilla did not learn about it privately. She learned the same way millions of people did, through the official palace announcement. And that single detail may explain why the moment hurt so deeply. Because this was never really about one title. It was about belonging. For years, Camilla had lived inside the royal family while carrying a complicated past. She had entered public life under enormous criticism and spent years trying to prove that she could stand beside Charles. Eventually, she became queen. But becoming queen did not necessarily erase every boundary surrounding her own family. Her children remained private citizens, and her grandchildren remained outside the formal royal structure. That distinction mattered, especially to Camilla, because while she had finally earned her place beside the king, she reportedly wanted something more for the family she had brought with her. She wanted her grandchildren to feel that they belonged to the same world. And one grandson in particular became increasingly visible: Freddie Parker Bowles. His appearances around royal events began attracting attention. There were photographs, family gatherings, occasional appearances near senior royals. Nothing officially changed, but the message seemed to become harder to ignore. Camilla's family was getting closer to the royal spotlight, and that may have been exactly what she wanted. She reportedly never demanded a title publicly. Instead, the approach appeared much quieter. A photograph here, an invitation there, a mention at a private gathering. Small steps. But when those steps happen repeatedly, they can begin to look like a plan. The goal, according to the narrative, was not to make Freddie equal to Prince George. It was something much smaller: recognition, a symbolic place, a way of saying that Camilla's family had become part of the institution too. Then came the Christmas walk. And this is where the story took a dramatic turn. Freddie was reportedly positioned close to the younger generation of royals. For a few moments, he appeared to be standing within the same royal picture as Prince George and the other children. It was exactly the kind of image that could change public perception. One photograph could suggest that the family boundaries were becoming softer. But before the cameras captured the moment, something happened. Freddie was reportedly moved away from the royal lineup. He was taken toward the back. And Camilla allegedly watched it happen. No argument followed. No public protest. She simply remained where she was. That silence may have said more than any confrontation could, because the message seemed clear. Family affection was one thing. Official royal status was something else. And the palace was not necessarily willing to blur that line. This is where Prince William and Catherine become central to the story. Their approach to the monarchy has often been described as smaller, more controlled, and more focused on the direct line of succession. In this narrative, William wanted the boundaries to remain simple. Who belongs to the direct royal line? Who has an official role? Who receives recognition? And who remains a private family member? For William, the distinction was reportedly important, because once exceptions begin, they can become difficult to control. One title can create another request. One ceremonial role can lead to another. And eventually, the public may no longer understand where the actual royal structure begins and ends. That appears to be where Camilla's hopes collided with William's vision. Camilla reportedly wanted a wider family legacy. William wanted a clearer royal structure. Neither side necessarily needed to openly fight. Sometimes silence can be enough. And William's silence may have been exactly that. A decision not to encourage expectations. A decision not to promise anything. A decision not to create another problem later. Then Catherine reportedly became involved in another important detail: royal photographs. Because photographs inside the monarchy are never just photographs. They communicate status, position, hierarchy, and sometimes, without a single word, They tell the public who belongs where. According to the source narrative, Catherine was concerned that placing Freddie too close to George in an official image could create the wrong impression. Not because of personal dislike, but because of what the photograph might suggest. One picture could become a headline. That headline could become public expectation. And public expectation could eventually become pressure for an official title. So the boundary remained. Then came the moment that reportedly ended Camilla's hopes. Prince George received the ceremonial distinction. From the outside, it looked completely normal. George is the future king. His position in the succession is clear. A special title connected to that future would not surprise anyone. But for Camilla, the meaning may have been very different. Because if she had truly been hoping for something similar for Freddie, George's announcement was more than an honor. It was confirmation. The line had been drawn, and it had been drawn publicly. There would be no confusion about who the future belonged to. The Windsor line, the direct heirs, the next generation of the monarchy. But the most painful part came next. Camilla reportedly did not receive a private warning. No personal conversation. No quiet explanation. No advance notice. Instead, she saw the official announcement, just like everyone else. Imagine spending years believing that perhaps there was still a possibility, then opening a palace announcement and realizing the decision had already been made. That is what makes this story so emotionally powerful. The rejection was never spoken directly. It was communicated through an announcement. And sometimes, silence can hurt more than the word no. According to the narrative, Camilla was devastated. The woman who had spent decades building her place inside the monarchy suddenly faced a painful question. Had she ever truly brought her own family into it? She had become queen. But perhaps her family would always remain outside the royal boundary. And that distinction was becoming impossible to ignore. Behind palace doors, Charles was reportedly placed in an uncomfortable position. He had Camilla on one side, William on the other, and between them was a question about the future of the monarchy. Charles may have wanted to find a compromise, a small title, something ceremonial, something that would make Camilla feel acknowledged without changing the succession. But according to the story, William was not convinced. His concern was what such a decision could lead to later. If Freddie received recognition because he was Camilla's grandson, what would stop other family members from receiving similar treatment? The monarchy was already trying to become smaller. Giving out additional titles could send the opposite message. So Charles faced a difficult choice. Support his wife, or protect the structure his son would eventually inherit. And eventually, the decision went in one direction. Prince George, not Freddie. That decision carried a much larger message than the title itself. It told the public exactly where the royal future was heading. George, Charlotte, Louis, and the direct Windsor line. Everything else remained outside the formal structure. For Camilla, that could have been devastating, because she may have believed that everything she endured would eventually create opportunities for the next generation of her family. She survived years of public criticism. She waded through decades of controversy. She stood beside Charles when many people never believed she would become queen. She stood beside Charles when many people never believed she would become queen. And eventually, she reached the highest position she could realistically achieve. But perhaps she expected that victory to mean something for her grandchildren too. Instead, the opposite message appeared to emerge. Her crown was secure. Her family was not. And that distinction is at the heart of the entire story. According to reports within the narrative, Camilla's reaction behind closed doors was emotional. The public saw George celebrating his new distinction. Inside, Camilla was reportedly struggling with what it represented. Not necessarily jealousy toward George, not hatred, not resentment toward a child, but grief over what the decision seemed to say about her own family. The message was simple. You can be queen, but your grandchildren do not automatically become royal. That boundary is difficult to cross. And William appeared determined not to cross it. The story becomes even more interesting when you consider Charles. For years, Camilla reportedly believed that Charles would be the person who could help. He was her husband. He understood her history. He knew what she had sacrificed, and he had repeatedly suggested that the right moment might eventually come. But when that moment finally arrived, the king apparently chose the institution over the request. That could explain why the announcement reportedly caused such a deep emotional reaction. It was not just William saying no. It was Charles failing to deliver the future Camilla had hoped for. And that changes the entire emotional picture. Because Camilla had spent years standing beside Charles. Now she may have felt that, when she needed him most, he had chosen the crown instead. That kind of disappointment does not disappear after one conversation. It can change a relationship. Even small personal routines can suddenly feel different. According to the narrative, Camilla became quieter after the announcement. Some engagements were reportedly canceled. Her public appearances became more distant. And even private routines between her and Charles were said to have changed. Whether every detail of that account is accurate or not, the larger story is easy to understand. A decision about a ceremonial title had exposed a much deeper family divide. And that divide is about legacy. Camilla may see family as something that grows outward. William appears to see the monarchy as something that must become more focused. Those two ideas can exist together. But they can also collide. And when they do, someone has to lose. In this case, it was reportedly Camilla's expectation for her grandchildren. Now, think about Freddie. He is growing up close enough to see the royal world. He can attend family gatherings. He can stand near the royals. He can share celebrations. But he may still watch Prince George receive opportunities that will never be offered to him. That creates a strange situation. Close enough to see the crown. Too far away to inherit any part of it. And as children grow older, they begin to understand those differences. A place at a table. A position in a photograph. An invitation. A title. Each one sends a message. That may be the real long-term issue facing this family. Not today's headline. Not one announcement. But what the next generation will think about these decisions years from now. Because the palace can control protocol. It can control invitations. It can control official announcements. But it cannot completely control feelings. And feelings can survive for decades. William's strategy may be effective in one sense. It creates clarity. There is less confusion about who represents the monarchy. The institution becomes smaller. The direct line receives the attention. And the public knows exactly who the future belongs to. But there is a cost. Every boundary creates someone who stands outside it. And when that person is family, the consequences can be deeply personal. That is why the George announcement may matter far more than it first appeared. To the public, it was a royal title. To William, it may have been a clear statement about the future. To Charles, it was reportedly a difficult compromise. But to Camilla, it may have felt like the final answer to a question she had been asking for years. Where does my family belong? The answer, at least within the formal monarchy, appears to be outside the inner circle. And perhaps that is the most painful part of all. Camilla finally became queen. But becoming queen did not rewrite the family tree. Her grandchildren could remain loved. They could remain welcome. They could remain part of family celebrations. Yet love and status are not the same thing. The palace can provide affection without providing a title. It can offer a seat at Christmas without offering a place in the succession. And it can recognize someone privately while keeping them completely outside the official royal structure. That appears to be the future William wants. A monarchy with fewer people, clear roles, and one unmistakable line of succession. But Camilla's vision was reportedly different. She wanted the institution to acknowledge the family she had brought into it. Not necessarily with power. Not necessarily with money. Just with recognition. And that is why the George announcement reportedly hit so hard. It did not simply give George something. It quietly confirmed that Freddie would not receive the same opportunity. The difference was now visible to everyone. And once something becomes visible, it becomes much harder to pretend it does not exist. So perhaps the real story is not about a title at all. It is about two different visions of the royal family. One wants a broader family legacy. The other wants a smaller, more defined monarchy. One sees belonging through marriage and family. The other sees it through direct ancestry and succession. Both sides can believe they are protecting something important, but only one vision can define the future. And if this story is any indication, William's vision is already winning. George's new distinction became a symbol, not just of his future, but of the limits placed around everyone else. And behind the palace walls, Camilla was reportedly left to face the painful reality that the crown she fought so hard to earn could not guarantee a royal future for her own grandchildren. That may be the real twist. She finally got everything she once seemed unable to have. The title, the position, the place beside the king. But the one thing she may have wanted most for her family remained out of reach. And now, the question is no longer whether the boundary exists. It does. The real question is what happens when the next generation finally understands why it was drawn. Will they accept it? Will they resent it? Or will someone years from now decide to challenge it? Only time will tell. But one thing is clear, Prince George's announcement may have lasted only a few moments. For Camilla, its meaning could last for generations. This is Crown Unveiled. And if you want to know what happens next inside Britain's most complicated royal family, stay with us.